Thanks for tuning in to our 5th episode of Sensible Dissent, powered by Razzle Cannabis Broadcasting Network, starring yours truly, Nicole West, and my amazing co-host, Sada Daniel. And on today's episode, we are so stoked to have the founder of Razzle Cannabis Broadcasting Network here with us, Brian Holler. Holler! He's here to give us some of his marketing wizardry, but first, a word from our sponsors, because these weed taxes are killing us.
Stuffed and Stacked is a California-based print and design company focused on the cannabis industry, a print manufacturer that gets it. From seed to sale, we have hands-on experience with the products you want to get to market, and we can't wait to help you with your next project.
Welcome back, and thank you so much to Stuffed and Stacked for supporting us on our ability to be dissenting very sensibly. And I want to get this whole thing started with some very poignant conversation in regards to a current lawsuit that's happening right now in the industry. And I wanted to ask, are you familiar with the lawsuit that's going on in regards to Raw Gardens being sued for their packaging being misleading?
I've only heard bits and bobs. I do not know the entire details. I'm going to assume that you, Nicole, do know some details.
I have some details, and I'm very interested to see how this pans out, because to me it's literally a wasted amount of time and energy and legal, because there's a class action lawsuit from a consumer who is stating that Raw Gardens misled the consumers by putting refined live resin as the words on the front of the package. Okay. Now, I don't know if you got a chance to catch our last episode about concentrates.
That I did.
Okay,
yes.
So you do understand how silly and confusing the industry is,
yes.
Which I think it's so funny that this came out right afterwards,
Isn't
right?
it? Yes.
I'm like, nobody knows what the heck they're talking about. So a consumer is suing, class action, okay. Mind you. This is a class action lawsuit against Raw Gardens because they're saying that the words refined live resin, in fact, is not what they were being sold. And in fact, they were being sold butane extracted hash that has terpenes and distillate reinfused to it. And that's not the same, and they're suing them because the words were wrong. And so from a marketing standpoint, I have to ask, I want to ask you, because you've got a whole slew of degrees in regards to marketing.
Sure.
You've got 20 years of marketing experience, and so I'm sure you've seen something where somebody's suing because they're like, you sold me the wrong thing, right? Like,
yeah,
this isn't okay.
Sure, we've all seen that, I think,
so
a couple times.
So how does that pan out in the world of because it's essentially you're suing their marketing, right? You're saying that they're marketing incorrectly. Yes. Okay, so they're marketing a product as refined live resin,
yep.
when they're saying it in fact is not.
Right. And so we don't know anything beyond that.
No.
Seriously.
Yes. That's
interesting. I mean, obviously words matter, as you well know. But if it's the same thing, I don't know. I feel like.
What does that even mean to you? What does refined live resin mean to you?
Doesn't it mean live resin?
What does that mean?
Yeah, I don't. Good.
Sada, does it mean something to you?
Yes.
I mean, I don't know exactly. Is there a standard definition?
No, and that's where
yep.
I actually got into a battle this morning on the interwebs,
on
the California City and County Regulation Watch page,
yep.
Because I'm saying basically they're suing because it says refined live resin. Right.
Right. Well,
that would be like suing for a bottle of hot sauce, saying that it said it was delicious, and you're like, this tastes like dirt.
That's exactly right. And so that's why I don't understand what's, people are trying to, so there's the rules for everybody else, and then there's apparently some other rules for cannabis folks.
Right.
Which this is, I think, hopping right into that knee deep, or as deep as you could be, because literally these are the nitpicky things that people are really trying to get at that you could never get away with in any other section of business or industry, right? Because if it was trademarked, right, maybe it was something that's your kind of brand, right, then you would trademark it.
Right.
If it wasn't trademarked, then that's on you.
Well, and that's my argument. I said, where are the, scientific research papers? Where is the data? Where is the standards of measurement that the industry has signed off on as being
Yes.
like, this is what it
Yes.
is?
How do you have the right to sue because you're like, this is terrible compared to what it
Right.
could be? Really?
Well, and did they patent it, trademark it, copyright it?
Right.
Because if not, then you could call it "Go fuck yourself" sauce,
Yep.
and
And we'd all be
that's
good.
as long as it tasted fire. Like
That's
you're
right.
gonna go buy the "Go fuck yourself"
That's
sauce.
right,
Like
exactly right.
I smoked the shit out of it,
That's-
but like that's not suable. You're
No.
like, this was not the "Go fuck yourself" sauce I remember last time.
That's right. I mean, what? I guess that's what I'm saying is like I feel like people think they can take advantage of cannabis companies in this way.
Do you feel like the marketing is at fault, or the lack of education?
Probably a little bit of both, I would suspect. I mean, ultimately, I do think that consumers being a little bit extra, right, or maybe a lot bit extra. But ultimately, like if there was some way to, like you said, like trademark, what is it, live resin? Like what was on it?
Refined live resin.
Refined live resin. If that was somehow unique to that particular business, then they would have taken care of that.
Right.
Then they would have been completely protected. But can't you just call resin that?
Well, let's go back to also, remember the episode with Sheila,
Yes.
and the predatory trademarks and the predatory patents, where you just put a word and you're like, the law said that I could do this, and you make it through, and then you just start suing people for no reason.
Right. That makes a lot of sense because, I mean, I know that happens. It doesn't make sense to do that.
Yeah.
but it makes a lot of sense that people would do that because in emerging markets, right, opportunities right for folks who want to unfortunately take advantage of opportunities like that, and plenty do, right? It's sort of like the very mean way of like, how people will they'll hoard domains.
Yeah.
Right? That is okay. I feel like, you're getting your stuff.
Oh man, I've been held
Like,
I've been held over the coal for some domains. If you're watching and you remember, I've spent almost $20,000 buying domains from people that wanted to be shitty to me because I talked about an idea in public before I should have talked about it.
It's not the worst way to protect yourself, that's for sure.
No, and people bought domains right out from underneath me, and then later when I was like, who owns this? But that's not like the time that I went to GoDaddy to buy NicoleWest.com and somebody had already bought it. And I was like, who owns this? And then I reverse searched it. I bought it a year before, high as shit, and I forgot.
I love that.
Yeah.
See, you're taking care of yourself and without taking care of yourself. Perfect.
But my question, do you, from a marketing standpoint, of all the years you've seen, I'm sure you've seen this happen to clients or people you've worked with, being sued over, like, the box said this or the label said that, right? Do you think this is a substantiated lawsuit? And do you think that, in your experience of seeing these things happen in the past, that, that there is a chance for there to be some sort of settlement on this person?
In my experience, people are usually only doing this because they're trying to basically either bring attention to something they don't like or to hurt a company.
There's so much hate on Raw Gardens because they're crushing the market. They're like the biggest in the game.
And
everyone is like,
and I don't want to give them any, but I mean, the truth be told is, like, once you have this stuff, that's when people start throwing shots at you. So
haters gonna hate.
They will hate, indeed. That is correct. And so if you ask me, it's probably a little bit more to do with that than a true consumer feeling genuinely, put out.
Upset, right. Right. I mean, this is a class action lawsuit on behalf of words that have no real definition at the end.
That's it.
Like Webster Dictionary, that shit. Like you can't even. You're gonna maybe find it on like Urban Dictionary.
Yeah,
I don't know if that counts. Is Urban Dictionary like
in
a court of law?
Right, does that fly? Or?
Does that come?
I don't know.
I don't know.
It just sounds like a lot of people trying to do a lot of nefarious things, and unfortunately, we are exposed to that quite a lot in cannabis.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yep.
And, that kind of leads me to my next question. What do you feel like's really missing in cannabis marketing? Because for me, this piece shows its lack of education, right?
Yeah.
We don't have standards, we don't have measurements, we don't have consistency.
That's right.
And so every time I talk about the industry, I'm like, we need to have a consistent answer for this. Like, we need to all be on the same page. Like, here's the manual, and this is what it's supposed to be.
Yep.
What do you think's missing to make cannabis, a business that can actually utilize marketing in the same way that the rest of the world does?
Well, I mean, I think you just said it right there. It's for some reason we don't get to play with the same rules and the same regulations and the same structure that everybody else gets to, right? So it puts us at a huge disadvantage in some ways. Although I think it kind of also fosters innovation, right?
Right.
Look where we're on right now. right? Your amazing show on our blessed network that we have of a bunch of amazing people like yourself and Sada and others that are more than willing to talk about their angle and how they talk and how their business operates and how their feelings are and their passion for all the different aspects of cannabis. Well, if it weren't for the strict regulations that marketing, companies or media companies have put on us,
we wouldn't all be confused as shit.
Yes, we wouldn't all be confused. But on the other hand, we probably wouldn't be sitting here.
True.
And so there is pros and cons, as they say, pros and cons for sure. But if you ask me what I think that cannabis needs, is just a little bit. If the companies that we traditionally rely on for that structure aren't going to be there for us, then we got to build it ourselves.
Right.
And that's what I at least hope this is.
Wow. Yeah. So in the process of building structure, I think mostly we need to look within ourselves and figure out what it is that we can bring to the industry to make it better, because so many people are really just trying to figure out how they can make something out of the industry,
right?
But it's not here yet.
Correct.
Right? So, when we are sitting down with people like, previous guests I've had like Saman or Sheila, where I'm like, hey, you have an expertise at this, like write this down, submit it to somebody, like pass it around, get some people talking about it, because we need these standards and we need these consistencies to be able to say, what exactly live resin is. I mean, go to the website or go to the Facebook page. It's California City Reg Watch. If you're not in it, ask for permission. You have to be in the industry to be in the group. It's a private group. But it's astonishing because people have such, strong opinions about they were obviously misleading the consumer. And I'm just like, what?
I feel like there's still a lot of residual effects from just propaganda all these years. So you get kind of the Karen effect, right?
Ooh.
Where you have people who are like, well, that cannabis company, like, I'm going to tell on them because they're doing bad things because I was taught that cannabis is bad.
Right.
But it's not. You're the bad one for doing that. And so ultimately, it's education, back to your point. Yeah. It's really, we all have to work together, whatever our lanes are in the industry, whatever our lanes are even outside of the industry. If you're passionate for the plant, you're passionate for the growth. I know I'm biased, so are you, but it literally, like, you can help society right now more than you ever could imagine.
Yeah.
And and really the first step is just standing up for what you know is right.
Absolutely.
And that's one thing I love about your guys' show is that that's what this is.
That's all we're trying to do.
That is all we're trying to do here. And anyways, that's what we need to do. And that's what everybody out there needs to do.
Thank you so much for that. Thank you so much, Brian.
Sure.
And with that, we are going to turn it over to Sada for a little bit of Sada Says so we can get some moon and the stars and, really figure out what the heck's going on out there.
So yesterday marks the full moon in Pisces, which is a very emotional and intuitive transit. And full moons are about closure and moving forward, but they also shed light on what we may be too blinded or like in our feelings to see. And I guess this also has to do with what we were just talking about with the lawsuit and just, being too self-absorbed and not really reflecting on like, maybe no one knows what's going on, so you can really reflect on yourself. And self-awareness is always a good thing, but I suggest being especially conscious of your actions and words during the next few weeks and really tap in and be open to receiving new ideas and revelations, because Pisces is a really dreamy and imaginative sign, so just be flexible and give yourself room for expression.
That is amazing, and hopefully we're going to be able to get some room for expression. I'm going to jump right into our dumb law for today, and today's dumb law is actually given from the clarity given by the BCC in regards to outdoor advertisement. And I just want to read some of this so you guys can understand how ridiculous this is. So all advertising and promoting of commercial cannabis must not be published or disseminated while a license is suspended, obviously. But here's a real good question. If your license gets suspended today and you're on a billboard and it takes 2 weeks to get your license, to get your billboard down, how many days are we outside of compliance on that? It can't be located within 1,000 feet of a daycare center, school, playground, or youth center, even though cannabis businesses can only be 600 feet away. So you can't put a sign within 1,000 feet, but you can put a store 600 feet away, which that makes a ton of sense as well. It can't be published or disseminated without first obtaining reliable, up-to-date audience information, guaranteeing that 71.6% of the audience is over the age of 21, which, let's talk about outdoor advertisement and how the heck would you ever be able to assume or figure out how old a person is. And when I research Billboard data, all the data that I can find say that 52% of people who observe billboards are between the ages of 16 and 34. There is nothing that drills down so far as to assume or show whether or not that means adult or not. 16 to 34 is the average age group of the driver on the road continuously.
Yeah.
Okay, so we can't use any depictions of anyone who's minor, sure. No objects such as toys, inflatable, movie characters, cartoon characters, and that starts to get real weird. So if you draw a picture of something, is that considered a cartoon? I think it is.
Yeah.
You can't advertise free stuff. You can't promote in a manner that is false, untrue, or tends to create a misleading impression to the effects or health of cannabis consumption. So you can't be like, this makes you well or anything like that.
Even if it's proven?
Even if it's proven.
Oh, I see.
Cannot do it.
Very interesting.
It cannot include any statement concerning the brand or product inconsistent with any statement or labeling thereof. I think that might be
that might be the Raw Gardens thing.
But yeah, maybe.
I don't know.
It can't create the impression that the cannabis originated in a particular place or region. So this goes back to our Appalachia regulations. So in order for cannabis to be called like Humboldt's finest, it has to come from Humboldt. Similarly, the way the wine industry works, right? If you want to make champagne, it has to come from Champagne, France. If you want to make Bordeaux, it comes from Bordeaux, France, so on and so forth.
Right.
There's what you would call a regional versus a varietal. And so this is creating regional of cannabis. I'm on board. Mm-hmm. But this is where things get frickin' weird. Any and all outdoor signs and billboards used for commercial cannabis advertising must be affixed to a building or permanent structure, which I guess I can get behind, but I've definitely seen things on like those moving billboards. Mm-hmm. They must comply with all the outdoor advertising acts if applicable. And this is the last part that gets me. They must not be located within a 15-mile radius of the California border on an interstate highway or a state highway that crosses the California border. Failure to comply with these requirements or any other of these laws may result in issuance of a citation or disciplinary action. Each day, a violation is considered a separate, substantial fine. Violations by licensed person may result in citations of fines of up to $5,000. You could also get your license suspended. So then I started to wonder, what is an interstate highway, right? Like, I didn't fully understand what an interstate highway was. Like, do you know? Like,
it's kind of confusing.
It was kind of confusing.
There is some confusion to it, for sure. You think you know, and then you dig in, you don't know.
You don't know. You don't know. So I thought it meant interstate, right? So I thought it meant, like, if the highway went from one state to another.
Right.
Just like English, I was like, interstate.
Yes, exactly.
But no.
No.
So, well, according to Wikipedia, the Interstate Highway System, or the Dwight D. Eisenhower National System of Interstate and Defense Highway, is partially financed by the Highway Trust Fund, which itself is funded by federal tax fuel. So you're telling me this is a federally funded road. Okay, so that's interesting. Didn't know that. I thought it belonged to our states. Through federal legislation, initially banned the collection of tolls. Some interstates do still charge. Mm-hmm. And as of 2018, 1/4 of all vehicle miles driven on the county are on the interstate highway system, or in the country. So it's 48,440 miles throughout the United States of interstate. I had no idea, but this was actually a project during the Eisenhower administration.
That I knew.
The interstate system was in an attempt to create the ability to have solid logistics, state to state, and it totally makes sense. And the states couldn't afford all of it, so we got some money, the fuel tax. So if you look at what fuels break down as, okay, now I'm following. So that means the 105, 205, 305, 405, 505, 605, 805, 905, 7, 8, 10, 110, 210, 710, 15, 215, 268, 80, 180, 280, 380, 480, 580, 680, 780, 880, Golden State Freeway, and the San Diego Freeway are all off limits to cannabis billboards if you're within 15 miles of a state border, which technically, according to the United States government and all maps surveying systems in the United States, the coast counts as 15 miles of a state border. And now people would say, wait, there's no state on the other side. That is not relevant. It is the border of what belongs to the state of California. That's right. So with that said, if you are within 15-mile radius, not on the road, radius of the California Ocean, you are within 15 miles on your billboard.
Jeez, so are there a lot of cities within 15 miles of the California, of the ocean?
Pretty much all the cool ones. Pretty much all the cool
everything,
ones.
Yes.
Pretty much all the cool
That's
ones
right.
are within 15 miles. And
Yeah.
so even if that wasn't the case, there's for sure billboards on the 80 on the way to Reno and on the 10 on your way to Blythe, because those are very poppin' areas to have a dispensary in the middle of a tiny little town. Go
Absolutely.
figure.
Yep.
And I've definitely seen billboards there. And
Me too.
this is the part that gets me. You can have a dispensary 100 feet on the other side of the Arizona or Nevada border, right? You can put a dispensary that can see the other state, but you can't put a billboard within 15 miles of it?
Yep.
But then what about the sign in front of your store? Is that considered outdoor signage? And does that mean that...
Oh, it's interesting. Does it go along with like your own, like, because you own, or well, you jointly own the property, I guess, right? In a way. Well, it's the regulation.
And then you get certain amount of sign square footage, and that's a
Yeah.
local zoning thing, right?
Yeah,
Like
right.
local will tell you, like,
or your city.
or your
Yeah,
city will
yeah.
say, oh, if you have this much building, you could have this much sign.
Right.
So what if you got like a real big sign? Does that count
Yeah,
towards your
does it-
billboard? Does that count? Ugh. It gets really, really sticky. But my point is to this is, why would they ever make a law that says you can't put a sign in a place that you can put a store?
Because as you well know, most of these laws are patchwork and just created with on top of other things that didn't really make a lot of sense either. They're reactions to people's kind of whims. And the money going on in all of those different places, of course, right? On top of that, I mean, if you want to just get like crazy with it, like if I'm a cannabis business owner and I listen to that great kind of that summary that you just gave of it, why in the world would I ever want to advertise outdoors even a dime?
Right.
Why? Especially when I've got a computer and I've got my social media profiles, I've got my cool website. Even though I might not be able to sell you online, right, direct products, which by the way, if it's CBD, you could. But if it's, that, why? Like there are many
I want
ways
to
for me
ask my
get,
favorite
like, just-
consumer,
oh, please.
Sada.
Yes.
Have you ever bought weed because you saw a billboard?
No.
Never?
Never.
one.
You've never saw a billboard and been like, oh my God, I totally got
to
to
go
go.
there right now. I got to go to Jungle Boys right now. No, I've never felt that before.
Can I ask you a question? Have you ever kind of been online or maybe Instagram or something like that and seen a brand and went, that looks pretty cool, and then checked them out?
Yeah, all the time. I'll be like following them for a while. And I'm like, oh, I should go find the store on the internet that has this thing on the internet.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the keyword being?
Internet.
There is a whole thing available to all you great owners and folks and ancillary service providers, et cetera, out there. It is called the internet.
Having the conversation about trying to explain billboards. And the reason I'm bringing this up is I've had a lot of clients that are like, oh, I want to get a billboard. And I'm trying to explain to them, I mean, not even your point, but like that
yeah.
I don't fully understand where they can put it.
That's, yeah.
Like I'm not trying to tell you that I don't want you to spend money marketing, but I also am trying to tell you that I don't know that this is something that I can co-sign as being, I know that this is okay.
Yeah,
and to me, after my episode number 1, if anybody's ever seen episode number 1 of me being like, I don't know if this is okay, I'm not going to do that shit again. Like, if it doesn't say like, Nicole, you were allowed to do this at 3:30 p.m., I'm not going to do it.
Right.
Like, it has to be very, very clear. And so to me, I'm saying if I were to draw a map, right,
Yep.
of where you could do it, I would just fuzz out everything 15 miles of the whole border of California, all the way around,
Yeah.
all the way around. So then, I'm sorry if you're from the middle of our state, but so then all the shitty cities are left, jammed up through the middle, that nobody puts stuff in. Like, there's not tons of dispensaries in, like, Bakersfield
Right.
and Kern County and, like, most of Central California. You know, those places that
It does
are...
explain some of what I see in Orange County, though, right? Because anything 15 miles of it, Huntington, Newport, nothing there, of course.
Oh.
But if you look at Costa Mesa, Santa Ana,
Yeah.
that's very interesting. Although at all those
Santa
places...
Ana's blasted with billboards.
Yep. Although at all those places, and if anybody of them came to me, I would tell them immediately why.
Why?
I don't understand. You know how much you and I both know, all three of us know how much a billboard would be on the low end.
I feel like the
a
billboards
month.
are valuable if you're in the middle of frickin' nowhere and you're on like that long
Yes.
journey. You know, not in LA.
No.
LA, it's like I drove by it so fast I don't even know what the fuck the thing just said.
Right.
But when you're on the long journey and it's a giant billboard and like you're on your way to Blythe,
Yes,
or you're on
yes.
your way to
Or, you know, I'm
Reno.
in Fresno and I'm taking
Yeah,
I'm taking
and
a right.
it's like been like an hour of nothing, and you
The
see
Billboard when I was in Reno.
Ah!
I did. I found a dispensary.
Sada
See?
found a
They
vi-
got 'em out here.
See, so the more obscure,
That makes
right,
sense.
That makes sense to me, and I get that too. Because if it's 11 at night,
they're not
on
going to
the
be
road-
searching on their like
No.
a lot of those people too aren't necessarily as technology advanced when you're in the middle of nowhere.
That's right.
Versus Los Angeles.
Yes, or San Francisco, or
Like
San
LA
Diego.
is telling me that there's cops on the road in my app, and like I don't go anywhere without that. So
Right.
like, you think that I'm gonna let a billboard tell me where to go?
See, that's kind of the thinking there too. And then on top of that, I don't know, as a consumer, I want choices, I want options, I want to, and maybe when it comes to cannabis, I want to be more discreet.
Right.
You know what I mean? I want to kind of take my time and grow with a brand and find out to them. I'm pretty sure a billboard can't do that for you.
No.
So.
Do you think that the way that these are being put together, that they align with alcohol, or they should align with alcohol? Because I know that has been kind of the argument is like alcohol can do this, why can't we? But now we're kind of starting to get to a place where I feel like we're kind of leveling out.
I would agree with that kind of philosophy, that it's leveling out. I agree with that. In terms of I think that if you're going to market to consumers, then sure, there's a lot of parallels between cannabis and alcohol. But the cool thing about cannabis, or there's many cool things about it, but one of my favorite things is it's not just to get high.
Right.
So what do you do about all those other applications that it provides, and why should those have any restrictions on them? Because if we're promoting eventually hempcrete or or something like that, or even even more specific, CBD, right? Lotion, whatever. Like, why does that have any weird restrictions on it in terms of legal age to buy and all these different things? We're going to really have to examine these kind of on a, I think, scenario by scenario basis, really, as it comes down the pipe.
Oh yeah, and the marketing differences between the CBD and the THC market is so confusing to me right now, because scientifically, again, we're going to go back to science.
As we
Okay,
should.
I'm going to always go back. I love science.
Me too.
If we go back to science, there is no difference between the hemp plant and the cannabis plant.
Oh wait.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. and so now we're basing all of our arguments off of the potency, right? And all this clarity that's coming down right now has been very less clear than everyone
That's
is
exactly
wanting to
right.
pretend like they think it is.
That's right.
About how we exist in that world. How we're allowed to market, sell, manufacture, brand CBD, products
Yes.
from, hemp.
Right. Even though
It's cannabis. It's all the same
cannabis,
thing.
It's all the same.
It's a certain, pheno. It's a certain, type of cannabis, but it's the same plant. And if you broke it down and you just chopped off a little piece of it and you gave a little branch from the heady weed that came from, the best grow in the indoor
right.
facility with the 39% THC or whatever crazy
Yeah.
number they're throwing at me
That's
these
right.
days, and you pulled a little tiny piece from a hemp plant in Arkansas,
Guess what?
and you put them to a scientist and they looked at them under the thing, there would be no way for them to tell them apart.
That is true.
And so for me, I'm very, very, very much looking forward to the next 6 to 9 months to figure out, where is the line. And
I think a lot of it's going to be driven by marketing and advertisers and things like that.
it's going to be
because,
driven by
your point-
habitual line steppers.
Yes.
That's how that's how this industry gets run.
That's it. And so you have
Habitual
to,
line steppers.
And today that lines up really nicely with best practices marketing wise.
right.
Disrupt, right?
Yeah, it's-
so the whole being in cannabis in general is disruptive.
Yep.
And so ultimately you want to push, you're going to hear people like Nicole, myself, Sada say this word a lot, but destigmatize.
Yep.
And so if we can sit here, hey, look, a few professionals are getting together talking about cannabis and how the laws are and some interesting kind of facets of, in this case, marketing and advertising them, right? I'm sorry, do you see any 4-foot bongs around?
No.
Do you see any, we're sitting here, our lives are this.
Yep.
So
Absolutely.
we actually are hurt when
Yeah.
progress is lost.
Yep.
It's not just my pocketbook that's hurt too. It's here and here, right? We all go through that. And it's just really up to us. I'm talking you and me and you. And these guys over here
Yep.
to really, really do this thing. And we have to push these messages not because we're self-serving, because we're serving everybody else
Yeah.
that can't.
And that's really, what we're doing and trying to do here at Sensible Dissent is
100%.
we're trying just to show that there's a problem. I don't necessarily know the answer to a lot of these things. I know what I think might be a good start. I know how to find some solutions, but at the end of the day, it's really about breaking down that stigma and being able to push those boundaries and, be that habitual line stepper.
That's right. I mean, we've got to talk about these things, and if nobody else is going to, we will.
Yep.
And that's where you got to start.
Yep.
So hopefully all of us don't put too much damn pressure on ourselves, because we're all working on this thing together, and we're doing a pretty darn good job, if I do say so myself. So keep up the good work, of course, you guys.
Yes.
And I'll keep pushing too.
Absolutely. And I was actually going to make mention that stop cutting marketing first.
Folks.
It's the first thing that people do, but it's the way that you drive your business. And
especially today, especially if you're a cannabis company. Like, that is not your first cut. Like, it really, really shouldn't be. And I got to tell you, if you're not promoting yourself in any way, shape, or form, how's anybody going to know about the wonderful stuff you're doing?
Absolutely.
So,
speaking of marketing budget, we should probably let our sponsors talk for a little bit so we can pay the light bills.
That's a fair point. Apricot Analytics is a full-service product quality lab for cannabis testing and CBD and hemp testing. They have over a decade of analytical lab experience and have been working with cannabis products since 2005. Apricot Analytics understands the needs of cannabis and hemp producers because they were producers themselves. They know the challenges, the frustrations, and the dreams of cultivators and manufacturers. They get it because they've been there, and they're here to help. Apricot Analytics tests your products for the good stuff, like THC and CBD concentrations, and helps you identify any of the bad stuff, like pesticides, mold, bacteria, and heavy metals. For more information, go to apricotanalytics.com, or to learn more about their current investment opportunity, go to the Razzle Investment Marketplace at razzle.com.
Thanks for staying tuned in to my favorite part of every episode, this week's Golden Cock Award. And this week's Golden Cock goes out to everyone who hasn't forgotten how cannabis has been used for decades in America to repress people of color, and for those politicians who have not given up on cannabis legalization or the MORE Act of 2019, the Marijuana Opportunity Reinvestment and Expungement Act. Despite the Republican-controlled Senate, the House will vote on legislation next month to remove cannabis from the Controlled Substance Act and erase some marijuana criminal records. This bill would not legalize cannabis exactly, but it would be up to each state to legalize it individually. But the vote will still be a historic step in efforts to reduce legal penalties. The vote will take place during the September work period. It will also expunge criminal records and provide a grant funding for people who have been negatively impacted by enforcement of marijuana laws. It's unfortunately unlikely to pass the Republican-controlled Senate, but that doesn't mean that giving up on and pushing this forward, because we still need a little bit more. The vote comes amid national reckoning over systemic racism and police brutality, with racial justice advocates noting that the disproportionate enforcement of marijuana laws against people of color. So this could be the time, America, for you guys to be a little bit more like people who deserve the golden cock. Welcome back to the best, worst, best part of every one of our Sensible Dissent episodes, where we highlight a prisoner who is currently incarcerated for cannabis. And we were made aware of this week's prisoner, Michael Thompson, through our friends over at Beard Bros Farms Instagram. And that led us to the website freemichaelthompson.com for the petition to seek his clemency. Michael Thompson is a 68-year-old man serving 60 years in prison for selling weed. That makes it a life sentence. He's never committed a violent act, but he was charged with violent crime just so that he could serve the longest sentence possible. Michael Thompson was actually discovered by the current Attorney General, and they submitted to try to get his clemency. The Free Michael Thompson Act in 2019. Currently, the 69-year-old Flint, Michigan native is essentially serving a life prison sentence in a state where cannabis is now legal. He's in Michigan, ladies and gentlemen. The Attorney General, Dana Nessel, filed a myriad of marijuana-related questions from the Cannabis Caucus of Michigan on behalf of member Rick Thompson during the public Facebook Live conversation on Friday, August 28th. The first question regarding Michael Thompson, who's currently serving a 42 to 62-year sentence after he was convicted of selling 3 pounds of marijuana to an undercover informant in December of 1994. His sentence was compounded by a prior felony conviction, including another drug crime in 1983. I wasn't even born yet. And for bringing contraband into a prison in 1986. And when they actually came to his house, they discovered a handgun. So he was charged with a weapon on charges of cannabis. So they actually were able to give him violent crime charges so they could give him life in prison. On August 5th, Nessel took the unusual action of sending a letter to the governor asking to exercise her executive power and commute Thomas's sentence. She hopes that he'll be released on time served. Thank you so much, Attorney General Dana Nessel, for reaching out and trying to get Michael's clemency. And anybody who has any ability to do anything that they can in Michigan right now to get the state to hear this case and free Michael Thompson, please do so if you can.
And now, my favorite part of the show, some nugs of wisdom from my OG, the Queen of Stones. Be grateful as fuck. It unlocks more blessings.
Oof.
True. I am an unrepeatable miracle. You are your ancestors' wildest dreams come true, which is my favorite card. And lastly, why not?
Why not? I love it. Thank you, Sada. Well, that's about all we have for you guys today. And thank you all for tuning in. And thank you again, Brian, and Razzle Cannabis Broadcasting Network for being there to really help us spread our message and encourage both myself and Sada to be the voices that, we were really intended to be, or in the OG Peachy cards and our Queen of Stones, our ancestors' wildest dreams. We will be taking a break next week, and we'll be kicking back up right after Labor Day weekend. So you guys have a wonderful week, and thanks for tuning in.
And remember, currently California inmate firefighters are getting paid less than $6 a day to fight wildfires and can't even join the fire department after their release.
Ouch. And if you don't have any kids, go do something nice for your friends that do, because they're all teachers right now, which is probably pretty terrifying. Have a great week, guys.